The schedule is out. A very, very interesting opener for the Bucks and another roster move. We dig into the details coming up after this on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined once again by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day. You can find me on the Bucks Radio Network throughout the course of the season, which we are fastly approaching once again. You can find Camille on the Locked On NBA show and the Technical Foul podcast as well. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We planned on basically digging into the schedule and reacting to that on the show today, Camille, but then along the way, something else happened, which I suppose we should clarify. We have it in the episode title as well. The Bucks have signed Amir Coffey. He is a name, I think you probably brought him up quite frequently earlier in the offseason in terms of like low-key targets for the Bucks. We were talking earlier, recording this morning with Ty of the Euro Step, and we both pointed out, the obvious of like, well, I feel good about the depth that this team has overall, but depth on the wing, like who's going to play the three? That's the one spot that you're really unsure about, and enter Amir Coffey. So I say there's a caveat. That is, as first reported by Eric Name, it's a camp deal for Amir Coffey. So it's not necessarily a contract. That being said, I have a hard time seeing a Bucks roster without Amir Coffey on it, and I think this essentially buys them some time to figure out how do we create that 15th roster spot and at whose expense is it going to be? Because with the camp deals, you're allowed to carry like 19 players, something like much more than your 15 throughout training camp. So that's what this does. It gives the Bucks that ability to, okay, we're going to stash him and we got him, and can kind of bring him along. We'll see him in the preseason. We'll see him throughout camp. I just don't see, unless Amir Coffey's shot is broken and he has massively regressed since we last saw him, I don't see any scenario where he is not the 15th man on the roster.
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised the Bucks even signed him to a camp deal. Like, Coffey is somebody who I thought would just get a straight up, maybe a vet min. Yeah, a standard deal, maybe a vet min at this point in the offseason, but surprised that he's a camp body. But yeah, like I like the signing a lot. Like, he doesn't necessarily fit into that really young age group of players we've been talking about, nor is he that older vet. 28 years old. He's just like a solid player. Like, that's the way I'll say it. He's a solid player. 6'7", shot like 41% from three last season. So he's someone who can knock shots down, play a bit of defense. I think some might overvalue his defense a little bit, but he has the tools. He's not going to be somebody who's a super weak link on the team on that side of the ball. So like, yeah, that's pickup I like. Like, you were naming off free agents a few weeks ago. Someone in the comments mentioned remembering this conversation where Amir Coffey was the only name of the ones you listed where I was like, I could get down with that. Like, that's more the speed I'm looking for. So I'm happy it's another wing player, someone with some size, 6'7", like I mentioned before, because a lot of the guys we've talked about being in the rotation are the smaller guards, especially when you're rolling out like the Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green lineups where you're a little small. So having another option for a wing player that has some size is nice. If, of course, he does make it off of this camp deal onto a standard deal, which I would think is pretty likely based on what we've seen from him in the past.
Yeah, you mentioned the figures from last year and his numbers, and really there's, for the most part, he's been a very good to consistent 3-point shooter. He's a career 38% 3-point shooter, and the 2 years that were his leanest, he shot 28% and 32%. Those were, for all intents and purposes, the seasons that he played the least. He shot 32% his rookie year when he just played 18 games and took about 1 3 per game. And he shot 28% 2 seasons ago when he played 50 games and took less than 1 3 per game. Otherwise, as you noted, 41% last year, 38% the year prior to that, 38% the year prior to his 28% season, and then 41% in his second year in the league. So he's been a consistent 3-point shooter. He takes about 3 per game in limited minutes. He averages 18 minutes a game throughout his career. And ideally, that's probably the minute total you'd be looking at in a Bucks uniform for Amir Coffey. But it not only the shooting, the biggest part, he's 6'7", and I don't know what his wingspan is, but that was a big discussion that we had, not only with Ty, you and I talked about it too. You got depth, but you got a lot of guys that we anticipate to play the 3 for the Bucks who are 6'4". Not that it's a bad thing. You just love a little more size.
Like having the options. Like sometimes you're going to need a little bit more size. Sometimes you can get away with the smaller lineups. Like we discussed, I think last week, somewhere in there, time is a blur with all the stuff that's been going on this week with the flooding. But I think that we talked about the fact that when you're looking at size, and you and Ty talked about it as well, before it was Boston, like you need to make sure you have the wings to match up with Boston because they had Tatum, they had Brown, they just had options they could throw at you. But when you look around the East and like the size of guys, you don't necessarily need to have those big wings all the time. But when you do come up in those matches, maybe with some Western Conference teams as well along the way, or just certain lineups, being able to have the versatility to throw out a bigger wing is going to be really helpful. And if you want to get super small, I wouldn't say I put Amir Coffey in the role of a small ball 4, but they have guys on the roster who makes sense as like a small ball 4 from trying out the Kuz thing, which we heard last year when he was brought on as someone who might help unlock Giannis at the 5 lineups, which are another change of pace for the Bucks. So yeah, I like the Coffey pickup if he makes it to the regular roster. The question is, again, I think attention turns to Andre Jackson Jr.'s contract. And what does this mean for him necessarily? Because we know they pushed that extend date back or guarantee date back on that contract. And then you pick up somebody like Amir Coffey, who last year proved to be a really decent role player who can do a lot of the things the Bucks are looking for a role player to do. So camp is going to be interesting. There are going to be some stakes there.
Amir Coffey, as it has been pointed out in the comments, has a 6'7", 6'7.5" wingspan. So similar to a couple of guys that we've talked about on this Bucks team. And that's about the same as we've seen for AJ Green, who I think is 6'7". He's 6'4" with a 6'7" wingspan. Gary Trent Jr. actually has a 6'9" or a 6'10" wingspan. That's why you've seen the Bucks able to kind of play with he and AJ for the shooting and that purpose as well. But you do at least get the size from Amir Coffey throughout camp. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But I think we're both aligned here. I think Amir Coffey is on this team when the season opens up, as we'll get to with the schedule. The last thing, you mentioned Andre Jackson Jr. Is it just him we should be circling and keeping an eye on, or is there potentially somebody else on the roster that, may be sacrificed for Amir Coffey?
I mean, when you think about it, like, it wouldn't be smart to just say like, yeah, it's only Ajax that could be an option, because we've seen John Horst do some things too along the way where you're like, I didn't foresee this move coming, or I didn't think you could pull this off. So who knows exactly what that looks like. But I think I point to Ajax first as the person to look at, just because of the contract situation and the ease it is to get from underneath that contract at the moment. I know we had a conversation too with Frank a few weeks ago about maybe Tyler Smith is that guy in the roster who the Bucks move on for. But I think because the Bucks have seen more from Andre Jackson Jr., that they might have a more definitive opinion about what he might be and be more willing to part ways with him than a Tyler Smith at this point. But again, this is all just us guessing at the moment. We have to see how things play off when training camp actually starts.
Yeah, we already talked about it, but I think it's even for all the valid criticisms and questions and or concerns you could have, I think it's too early to move on from Tyler Smith. If it weren't for the fact that you literally just re-signed him less than a month ago, I think there's another interesting name you would look at and say, well, realistically, this guy is going to be playing and asked to play the same role as Amir Coffey, and I think we all feel more comfortable with Amir Coffey, but just re-signing him, and as you alluded to, it's easier to get out of Ajax's contract for the partial guarantee. That I think that's kind of where we're headed, but we shall see. And that's going to be one of the more interesting things to monitor throughout training camp now is the future of Amir Coffey and a couple of position battles for this Bucks team. Beyond training camp, we can start to take a look ahead to the schedule, which was revealed about 2 hours ago, and a very, very notable start to the campaign for the Bucks. We'll dig into the details from this new schedule and some of the quirks that come with some new media rights partners coming up next on Locked On Bucks. Well, most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch Money does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. If you've got subscriptions and just want a way to keep track of that, Monarch Money can do that for you. They can link all of your accounts and immediately spot a few subscriptions you're not even using, canceling those alone, saving you money every single month. And if you're budgeting with a partner, especially, Monarch Money makes it simple to review your finances and set budgets and goals and spending activities all in one place. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, the schedule is out, Camille, and I was talking. I don't think we mentioned this on the show. It was when we were talking beforehand, but when I was talking with Tony the other day, we were both talking about some of the things we had heard about the schedules, and I told him, I was at a concert at Fiserv Forum and was talking with some contacts I have with the team that were also there and trying to get anything I could from them about this schedule. And they kind of hinted at, well, we're very pleased and we think the fans will like the first couple games and the start to the season as well. I'm like, oh, okay. And I immediately took that as, is that when the Pacers are going to come to Milwaukee? Like, all right, interesting. Did not even consider the return of our guy, Chris Middleton, which is going to come in the season opener for the Bucks with the Wizards coming to town Wednesday night, October, 22nd. Mm-hmm. And Middleton and the Wizards. Ty and I were talking about it earlier today, and that, I hope the Wizards games are early because who knows, maybe Chris Middleton has moved on. And if, they're not coming to Milwaukee until, let's say, mid-February or March, what if he's off the team by then? Well, you don't got to worry about it now. And I'm assuming there's no double ankle surgery or double wrist surgery this summer. And Khris is going to be good to go for opening night. And that is going to be a truly special moment to see the reaction that he gets from the fans in Milwaukee in his return to this city.
It's going to be an emotional game, I think, too, with big emotions to start off a season. I think, too, like we've seen videos and pictures that Khris has been in the city over the off season. So like he still has some ties here. We know how he feels about the city. We know how important of a part he was for this championship team. So to open the season up, being able to welcome Khris back, show him some love, some gratitude for what he was able to do in a Bucks jersey, I think it's going to be cool. And also just seeing them play, like, seeing Giannis against Chris Middleton, things that, we haven't been able to see, but we heard about like their training camp battles when they were young players fighting for playing time, since both were like the small forward at the time, just really fighting, going at each other one-on-one. So we'll be looking forward to seeing the two of them compete against each other, although it's also kind of like heartbreaking and weird because they've just been teammates, like forever. So seeing them play against each other is weird. It was weird seeing them in Washington last year, but we never got to see Chris Middleton in the Washington Wizards jersey in Milwaukee. So it is a fun way to open the season up on one level, but it's also like an emotional kind of like, dang, like he ain't 22 ain't here no more.
Yeah, well, and I suppose we should not sell this short either. The return of our guy from last year to AJ Johnson.
AJ Johnson.
Milwaukee.
He might go for 40.
I saw a few people point out too, like, hey, kind of like, I think we've talked about it with Frank before too, and Frank has always been I'm pro no Christmas Day game because there's no letdown on the holiday then, and the years when it was the down Warriors, fine, give us that because you can feel good getting a win on Christmas Day. A few people pointed out, hey, you get to start the season with a win, and that's going to feel good. I hope so. It's going to be an interesting Wizards team full of youth.
Yeah, like you hope you get a win. It would feel bad. Like that post-game episode afterwards are like, well, Chris Middleton got the best and those young guys got the best of the Bucks to open it. Like we hope it doesn't go that way. Like you would expect for the Bucks to beat Washington, but again, especially early in the season, you really never know what you're going to get. But I mean, opening the season up against Washington at home, then going to Toronto and then playing against Cleveland, like it gets challenging pretty quickly for the Bucks because after Cleveland, you come back home, you have the Knicks and then the Warriors and then the Kings before you head to Indy to play the Pacers. So like it's an interesting stretch to start the season after an emotional return for Chris Middleton and then the youthful vengeance of a AJ Johnson.
I mean, look, it could be a revenge game for Khris as well.
We love that.
Yeah, it feels like you always get the Cavs and Knicks early on the schedule now, but you're going to get the Wizards and the Raptors as your first two games. Toronto is their first road game just a couple of days later. Feel pretty good about starting with those two teams, especially for a group that we've talked long and hard about. We like the makeup of this group. I understand the questions that exist, but those are the types of teams I want to start the season with to start to build some momentum. If you're the Bucks, a couple of other takeaways from this schedule that I have, Camille.
Mm-hmm.
I really love the fact that, number one, I think we're all excited and curious to see what the new media partners mean in terms of what are we going to see that's new and innovation here from NBC and from Amazon. But I especially love the fact that Amazon appears to be leaning into early games on the weekends, which I am all about. There's a lot of 2:00 games on Saturdays, and these aren't Amazon, but a lot of 2:30 games on Sundays. It feels like every game the Bucks are playing on a Sunday is like a 5 or a 2:00 game, which I am also perfectly fine with. And not a whole lot of Saturday games, but a bulk of those are early games, 2:00 games on Amazon, which, hey, let's normalize that. And let's get into a world where there's only like 1 or 2 games on a weekend that are played past 6:00.
Yeah, listen, everybody who works for the team for sure is going to be like, yes, because you get the rest of your Saturday, your Sunday in the evening back. But we know from the players, those can be tough on their schedules and like not getting in the naps beforehand like they normally do. So some of the games might be a little wonky in the sense of how they start, maybe some slow starts there. But I'm also really interested to see how the media partnerships work out. Like, when you think about all of the different streaming services you're going to need to be able to watch your team in addition to the cable, that part of it, like I know the NBA is making a lot of money off of it, but for the fans, like it's kind of weak. Like you got to have Peacock, which is $10.99 a month with ads. Amazon Prime is $14.99 a month. Then you got to have your cable provider to get the ESPN games. Like the money can add up pretty quickly, especially with the regional sports networks. But regardless of that fact of it, I do think the national TV game part is interesting because, one, I didn't see NBA TV listed for
No,
any
it's
of the
non-existent.
like
Yeah.
national TV. Something like, that's no longer part of the equation
No
here.
longer. Yeah, because it was a Turner produced thing.
So it's all different now. You got NBC, you got Peacock, you got Prime, you got ESPN, you got ABC. So finding those different channels, getting used to the days of the week too, I think is going to be something new, because so used to like the TNT Tuesday, Thursday, ESPN having Wednesday, for like just getting used to the new schedules, I think is going to be a little bit challenging at the beginning as well.
I think there's a handful of games that should backtrack a little bit that are going to be on NBA TV, but it's not like it was in years past. I mean, similar to Turner is producing inside the NBA and then renting it out to ESPN. It's going to be a similar type of deal, but not like in the past where we'd count up national games and you would see NBA TV games included in there where you're thinking like
are they really kind of?
Yeah, I don't know about that. So that's one of the bigger changes here. You mentioned too, like trying to basically keep a spreadsheet to figure out where and when can I find these games. I've seen a couple of cheat sheets put out there. So we'll share that over. Look, in the past, we were all accustomed and familiar with TNT as Thursdays, and then it eventually became Tuesdays and Thursdays when they wanted to move out of the shadow of the NFL. ESPN had Friday and Wednesday, and ABC would have Sunday, and then later on Saturday night. But it's totally different now. So we'll bring up that cheat sheet of what you need to know with the inclusion of Amazon and NBC, and when the Bucks' first game on those two services is going to be, coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. So I saw, I think it was Jay Skeets tweeted out the breakdown of what network has what throughout the course of this season here. And we mentioned too, when are the Bucks going to first be thrown on these new partners? Right out of the gate. Their fourth game of the season against the Knicks on a Tuesday night, October 28th, is an NBC game. So that's the first time we're going to see the Bucks on NBC. There's going to be NBC games. There's going to be Peacock exclusive games as well. We already knew one of those, which is the Martin Luther King Jr. game in Atlanta against the Hawks. But their first Peacock exclusive game is going to be November 17th, a Monday night in Cleveland against the Cavaliers. And their first prime game is going to be an NBA Cup game in New York, November 28th against the Knicks. So that was one of the other interesting parts to the schedule for me, Camille, is that week. And I had to do like a triple take when the league released the NBA Cup schedule to like, wait, am I missing something here? So they don't have any Cup games the third week that this starts, but they got two that are sandwiched around Thanksgiving, the final week of it. So their first one is home against the Bulls, November 7th, then home against the Charlotte Hornets the following Friday, November 14th. That next week, Cup games are played on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, I believe, right? And Thursdays. And they don't have any of them, any game that week. That's a Cup game. But then the week of Thanksgiving, day before Thanksgiving, they're in Miami in a Cup game. Day after Thanksgiving, they're in New York in a Cup game, and that is part of a back-to-back as well. So a really busy week for the Bucks, the week of Thanksgiving, where you got those two Cup games. You've got a back-to-back Friday night in New York against the Knicks, Saturday back at home against the Nets. And oh, by the way, I know he's not playing, but to start the week, Monday, November 24th, the Portland Trailblazers are in Milwaukee, so they have, theoretically, if he's traveling with them, Damian Lillard in Milwaukee, potentially, I should say Damian Lillard, but you will have Drew Holiday back in Milwaukee.
Yeah, you will. The Drew Holiday return games, but in a different jersey this time, not in that Celtics jersey. You mentioning the Thanksgiving part made me think, like, does the NBA have an issue with the Bucks around the holidays? Because, like, yes, we know they didn't get a Christmas Day game. That's fine. That's whatever. But their schedule around Christmas is actually nuts. Like the end of December going into like the beginning of January, like maybe the month between the 15th of December through the 15th of January, is a really, really tough schedule for the Bucks in terms of just the travel and the home road splits there. So here you go here. So for example, on the 21st of December, the Bucks begin a 5-game road trip where they go to Minnesota, Indiana, Memphis, Chicago, and Charlotte. After that, they come home. They play Washington on New Year's Eve at 7 p.m. Central Time. So for those of you who would love to, spend New Year's Eve, start it off in Fiserv Forum, you'll get a chance to do that. Then they play the 2nd against Charlotte. Then they're back on the road on the 4th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 11th, playing Sacramento, Golden State, the Lakers, and the Denver Nuggets. They come back home, they play the Timberwolves, and then they go to San Antonio on the 15th. So like that stretch from like the middle of December through the middle of January is really tough, I think, on the travel schedule. And just around the holidays too, like they're on the road for Thanksgiving, then they're on the road for Christmas.
Yeah, they always like to blow it out at Fiserv and bring the holiday imaging and themes throughout the arena leading up to Christmas, but they're not going to be home at all that week or they're after Christmas. So it's the home game against the Raptors, as you noted, and then 2 weeks later, the New Year's Eve game against the Wizards. So that is an interesting wrinkle for this team. A couple questions that I've seen come in through the chat about the FanDuel Sports Network. We're still a little bit removed or a little bit behind there on the name of the network, but for the RSNs, so am I going to be able to see these on those? And it's my understanding, and I got to double check this, but the Amazon games are exclusive to Amazon. So those will not be on Bally, or on Bally, I did it too, FanDuel. And then the Monday only games on Peacock are exclusive to Peacock, is my understanding of that. I'll have to confirm that, but I would just assume if you got a streaming game, it's exclusive to that streaming service. And that brings us back to the watch guide. So it's going to be interesting this year how much they've spread out this package. We talked about what it was in the past, where you would have Tuesday and Thursday on TNT. The Tuesday was to avoid the NFL, and once Thursday night football stopped, then they would pick up the Thursday night games. ESPN had Wednesdays and Fridays. ABC would have Saturday night games and Sunday afternoon games, and again, that kind of coincided with the ending of the NFL schedule. Well, now there's a national partner for every single night of the week. So it starts Sundays. ABC continues to be one of the Sunday partners, but there's also going to be NBC Sunday games, and those will also be streamed on Peacock. So NBC is going to have games on Sunday and Tuesday. Those games you can stream on Peacock or watch on NBC. Monday are Peacock exclusive games. So if you have one of those, the only way to watch it is on Peacock, and we already mentioned one of those that the Bucks have. Wednesdays and Fridays, ESPN still has those days. ABC still has, as we mentioned, Sundays and Saturdays, but Amazon now, Prime, has Thursday exclusive games, Friday exclusive games, and Saturday exclusive games. So it's going to be a chore to keep track of all the streaming services that you need and when and where to track those games. But there's a national partner for every single day of the week now, and in some days, multiple national partners.
Yeah, and that's exactly why the NBA is talking about all this increased revenue that's coming their way. For those on YouTube, throwing up the cheat sheet really quick so you can see what Justin was just mentioning about how every day of the week is sponsor driven, like every day. Again, the sponsorship money for the NBA is coming in really good, but some questions for the pockets of fans, but that is what it is. We know what the game is, but as we get ready to wrap here, Justin, I'm really curious too. When you look at the Bucks schedule, which games are you actually like just most excited to see? Because I heard you and Ty's conversation on the earlier episode of Locked On Bucks and saying like, like the rivalries, like they don't really hit the same right now for the Bucks. Like it's more so just being excited to watch the Bucks play. And me saying rivalries reminded me the NBA rivalry week having the Bucks and the Thunder. Like, really, NBA? That's the rivalry that you. Why?
Well, like, you don't remember the NBA Cup final last year. You don't remember the Tony Snell game from like 8 years ago. It's a deep storied rivalry.
They're right there. It's like in their hands, given to you, NBA, and y'all still didn't land. Like, come on now.
I mean, like, if you're not going to give me the Pacers there, or the Bulls, or the Miami Heat, right? Like, at least do something else that makes sense. Like, for all I can, the Los Angeles Clippers, because it's the Bucks versus Brook Lopez, like something like that, where there's at least some rationale behind it. But just it's rivalry week. It's the Bucks and the Thunder. Like, oh, right, of course, because this is one of the rivalries we talk about every single year.
Right. Like, that's what everyone's looking forward to. Like, of course you want to see the NBA champs come to town, but like, that's not a rivalry. An NBA Cup game is not a rivalry match.
That's right there for you too. Throw the Pistons on there for your rivalry. Literally anything. The 76ers, like, force something in there.
Yeah.
And look, I get with Philly and some of these other teams, well, they already have this other rival. Then, just don't do this. Don't make every team participate then. If it's already used up and you don't have a natural rival, then whatever. The games that I'm looking forward to, obviously every single one of those Indiana Pacers games. I believe the first two of those games are both in Indiana. A couple weeks into the season, November 3rd in Indy, and then the Bucks' final game before the Christmas break is in Indy against the Pacers on December 23rd. So I'm looking forward to those games. I look forward to, maybe I'm just a sicko, I look forward to the NBA Cup games.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens in the Bucks group, but I'm especially curious about those. And then outside of that, the games against the Cavs and the Knicks, I'm looking forward to those just to see where this Bucks team is at and how they start to clock in. Like last year, we talked about it where you looked at the Knicks and the Cavs and the Celtics specifically, but especially the Celtics, because we knew Boston's going to be really good. And you wanted to use those as litmus tests, but they were so early in the season, and it frankly didn't really matter anyway, that you couldn't really do that. So I'm just mostly curious and looking forward to those games. Again, you got two of them very early, similar to last year, where it's two of your first four games of the season against the Knicks and the Cavaliers. But you got later games against the Knicks. So like, especially that February 27th game. And ironically enough, you got them kind of tied together there, where you play the Cavs the 25th of February, the Knicks the 27th. You play the Cavs again in mid-March at home. So like those games, and I suppose to a lesser extent too, teams like the Pistons and the Orlando Magic, like the teams that we expect to be somewhere around that like 3 to 6 range. How do the Bucks look against those teams? And, we talked about it with Ty of what's the ceiling for this team? Like, is it realistically, if everything breaks their way, I think they can be a 3 seed. So how are you performing against those types of teams like the Magic and like the Knicks, if they fall off a little bit? So those would be the ones. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to circle when LeBron and Luka come to town, or Steph Curry early and Jimmy Butler, maybe Al Horford too. Victor Wembanyama and games like that. I'm more interested just because there's so much curiosity around this team against those teams in the East, like the clear contenders in the East and the teams that are around you in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I agree with you on those like upcoming teams. Like I would add the Hawks into that as well. Like I want to see how the Bucks match up with the Hawks this year, but the Detroit games in particular and the Orlando games in particular that I'm looking most forward to is beginning of December. You have Detroit at home on the 3rd, and then you play Detroit again in Detroit on the 6th. You have a game against the 76ers in between that. But when the games are really close together like that too, whatever happens in that first game tends to carry over. I always love that type of energy. And you have the same situation with Orlando in February. You play at Orlando on the 9th of February, and then you play at Orlando again on the 11th. So back-to-back games, both in Orlando. like a mini playoff feel to it. And I really enjoy those experiences. So those are two I'm looking forward to, in particular from those upcoming teams. But I'm also looking forward to the Wemby matchups, just because like Wemby and Giannis every time has been just a really fun experience seeing the two play against each other. So want to see that. And again, just some of the OGs in the league, when they finally come back to Milwaukee, like when the Rockets come to town, seeing Kevin Durant, when the Lakers come, when the Warriors come, because we don't know how many more, when the Clippers come, how many more of these games you have with some of these aging stars. So those are probably the ones I'm most excited about. But I agree with what you and Ty mentioned on the Thursday episode, I guess earlier today's episode, about just being excited to see the Bucks play, period. Like that's where I'm at, where it's like, I'm getting into football. See, we know training camp's happening, but I'm like, man, I cannot wait to see the Bucks start playing basketball again.
Yeah, one of your last games of the regular season, well, towards the end, it's March 29th is when Brook Lopez makes his return to Milwaukee. We already spotlighted Chris Middleton's return. It's on the home opener. So like those games, but that's the other interesting part is it's really next year that you would circle any of those individual games with Dame being back on the floor. Maybe some other coaches are back in the mix, and teams like Boston, Jason Tatum theoretically back next year, and what that means and what that does for juice in those games. But yeah, that's the other interesting component. I mean, there's no Bud game this year. There's no even like a Taylor Jenkins game and things like that. You got Charles Lee. But yeah, it's really from that perspective, like when does Brook Lopez come back? When does Chris Middleton come back to this team? And I suppose too, like Pat Connaughton making his return to Milwaukee will be a special moment for some Bucks fans, but certainly for the players and the organization there. The other thing to just spotlight selfishly, I love the fact that this is, to my recollection, since I've been involved in the broadcast, which will be year number 11 now, this is the fewest weeknights, like non-weekend Friday night, 9 p.m. tips that this team has, where their West Coast trips have worked out this year, where some of it is spread throughout the weekend. So it's just 3 games that are tipping off at 9 on the West Coast. I absolutely love that. We talked about earlier games on weekends, a ton of like 2:00 Saturday games, a ton of 2:30 Sunday games, even some 5:00 Sunday games. Like that's my cutoff. We don't need to do games past 5:00 on weekends. Like that should be good. Do one, and that's your marquee game. So I'm all in favor of seeing more and more of that. And some scheduling quirks too. Like they got a decent amount, and this was not the case last year, of chunks of time off. Like even the Martin Luther King Jr. game, they're off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday leading into that noon game on Monday. Like they have a handful of pockets on the schedule like that with 2 or more days off in between games. And it just felt like last year, every single game, I know you had a couple pockets, but once that was gone, the last, month and a half of the season, it was back-to-backs or every other day from there on out.
Yeah, and that's going to be nice for them. I think they have 14 back-to-backs this season, somewhere in that
range.
Less
than last year, 16 last year.
And you love to see that. So like giving the Bucks team more space, like I enjoy that. But man, like schedule drop is exciting because you're starting thinking about the matchups and you can put the dates on the calendar. Like now I can tell all my family and friends, don't be asking me for stuff on these days because you know the Bucks are playing. You know what that means. But again, like the season's almost here, guys. We got a month or so before training camp gets underway, and then we start talking about some preseason basketball. But yeah, the schedule release is here. So I would love to know too from everybody listening, all the everydayers, like which games are you looking forward to? Let us know in the comments. Are there any games that you think are must see for the Bucks where you're like, I don't know what I got to do, but I'm gonna make sure I'm in the building for that game? Like, let us know in the comments as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't impact me as much, but as a fan, I am very looking forward to the new TV partners, just to see what changes do we see and what are some of the differences there, as everybody's had their complaints and certainly valid about getting a little stagnant with some of the moments of the broadcast here. So what that means. But again, as we leave you here, the schedule's out. You can find it at bucks.com/schedule. Leave your thoughts on the game you are most looking forward to for this Bucks team. And maybe we didn't highlight one of them, but I would imagine the home opener for Chris Middleton and the Pacers games are going to be the ones carrying a lot of attention there for the Bucks. And Amir Coffey. So again, it is a camp deal. We'll just put an asterisk on it. He is not taking the 15th spot on the roster. They have him for training camp. We'll see where it goes from there. I would be stunned if Amir Coffey is not suiting up for the Bucks when they host Chris Middleton and the Washington Wizards to open up the season October 22nd. That'll do it for today's show, and good to have Camille back. It's been a long week and a rough week for her. So again, shouts to anybody that's dealing with the weather that we had and the flooding over the weekend. But that'll do it for the week. And we got a lot to dig into next week. I think we have another interview that's going to be coming up to take a look back at the history of the Bucks, and then some more thoughts on developments that we get on Amir Coffey, the roster situation, and any other quirks with this schedule. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again next week on Locked On Bucks.